Plus, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a watermark on each photo. So the watermark is the logo, the hallmark as such. So there's no stealing of photos and no problem with rights. And this is a good way of differentiating. It's just as long as it's on each photo and it doesn't show. And now we come to the category pages. Now the aim of this page is to help a user to see what they want in the range. So if you want 10 products and they propose about 100 or 200, then that's a bit of a pity. So you should be able to pinpoint what you want immediately. So here they have the right approach of what is useful. You've got different colors and then you've got filters per category. Here they have about 100 products on just a single page. So now what would I do? I don't really buy so much hair extension as you might imagine. I would probably filter it according to hair color, which would be natural for a customer. This is a very category and supplier-based approach. So you need to have a customer focus. That is, how is the customer going to select the hair he or she wants? It won't be so easy really to pick one here. So you can do it according, if you filter it correctly and you do it by hair color and so on. Also, what you can't see here is that on a 27-inch screen, which is a bit smaller than this one, let's say, but you can see what's visible is right up to the title on top, extension point come. But imagine on a mobile page, a mobile screen, it would be really small. On 11, on a much smaller screen, you can't see very much, especially on 11 inches, so you miss out on most of the functions. Now the product sheet. So now you've got Gaillat, that's the next one. And over to you now. Well, both of us worked. It's not that we didn't. I worked on Gaillat.com. So as I said, this is a well-being products marketplace, wellness and all. So the general impression is very nice. It's very pleasant. It's attractive, nice colors that you see in other shops of the same kind, like Nature et Découverte, and also the message, the communication is quite nice. But I didn't understand what the site was doing at all, because content, text, and all were all mixed up with the products. So you see the products, but you don't know where you are. You don't know that it's a marketplace. And I didn't know what they were trying to sell. So initial impression is very nice, but after that, you tend to be a little frustrated on the home page because it isn't very clear. Now, why did I stay on and look at it? Because the reference elements were nice and bright. In red, you've got the phone number, and then you've got a reassuring message says that you can always contact us and we can help you. There's a good visibility of your basket as well. Of course, I know immediately that this is a merchant site. And also, they incite you, they encourage you to, subscribe for the newsletter. Now, that's interesting. What else? I also like that you can see several types of products compared to extension.com.fr. Here you browse per tab. According to tab, you go from one to the other to see what the products are. Now, the downside. Because there's a little bit of redundancy, like they try and reassure you 3 times, and I think that's a bit too much. And then another major problem was this menu, the browsing menu. This is a marketplace, so you normally supposed to have plenty of products, and this is not representative of the entire offer. Because eventually here you have just 3 tabs, but they have something that can take you to the product catalog. So if you have that, you should show it. You should say how many products you have right away on the home page so that people stick around and see. There's something else I didn't like either. they have a sticky menu, and it's a menu right at the bottom, and it takes you straight away to the community part. I'd have preferred it on the band on top, that you have the sticky menu, so that you find your basket really quickly and gives you rapid access also to some information which is available on that top band. Apart from that, what else did I not like? The community text is there, but it isn't very clear. I didn't understand what the site's positioning was between community, the blog content, and the product. So that's what I saw on the homepage. And then just one last point, which is open to discussion. You needn't all agree with me, and that is about the slider. Is it useful or not? Can we convert it or not? Now, some sliders are not very good, so it's sometimes useful to put static visuals rather than a slider that will just keep moving. How many of you use sliders on your homepage? All right. Right, okay. Will you talk to us about the category page now? Now here with Gaillat, I've got two screenshots, one of the entire page and also of what I saw on my office PC. So their category page, I don't see any products, and that's a nuisance. What's worse is the first thing I see is content. You know, it's all editorial content. But what I liked was that it's still very reassuring, because they're always trying to comfort you and say that it's easy to contact them. And I liked all the comments, etc., about exchanging products and things. Over here, you can filter according to what's of interest to you. And through focus, you know, because here our aim is well-being, so they've worked on categorizing products with certain criteria. That's good, so that means you can stick to your sector of activity and therefore know who the buyers are. But problem, the buyer who comes on this page, he must stay. So if he hits on this page looking for home products for well-being, what does he see? He sees this big picture, which is not representative of their product offer, then editorial content, and then comments, and then people just go away because they haven't been able to find what they want. So he has to scroll down on the page to discover what the rest of the catalog is all about, or just to discover it. Apart from that, and what I often see on other merchant sites, is this link between the mother category and the daughter category. Now, in this one, which is the home category, you have several sub-categories, but which are not all attached to the main category. So on this site, you only have 9 products in the main category. If I'm browsing and I find just 9 products, there's no point going further, because there'll be just 3 eventually, because they'll be filtered out. So be very careful that you do the right connection, the right attachment. Well, that's what you have on PrestaShop, you know, because if you look at it's a setting and a configuration that has to be done. And the merchant is not going to put all the products into the main or the principal category. But when you have a catalog which isn't really well replenished, you must think of linking. Yeah, considering that on Marketplace, you really have a lot of products and a lot of categories. Now let me talk to you about Gaillat. Let's discuss the entire site. I would say that the graphic charter is very nice. It's very hard on it. It's less colorful than Gaillat, of course. But you do understand exactly what you're doing on this site. You have a big baseline, and it says candle specialties, decorative candle specialties. I think that is brilliant, because you know immediately what you're looking at. So you've got ideas and we've got accessories. So that's a bit of tongue-in-cheek again. So it's very effective, particularly, or everything is the right size for a normal size screen. Now, it's important that you have good quality visuals. There's a small error here. that some of them are on a white background, some of them are too big, some of them are not well determined, but on the whole they're good quality because that matters. Another error that I've seen on virtually all the sites, and that is the product ranking, but you shouldn't show it if you've got just 1 out of 10,000. Now, if you have 50 products and you have just one comment, then you shouldn't show it. There's no point. And that's what they've done on the category page. You might have 1 or 2 scores or 1 or 2 comments, and the rest is all empty. So try and receive them, receive all the opinions and so on. And if you don't get any ranking, people will think that you don't have enough customers. And that might be an off-putting thing. So the principle behind it is the search engine. It's just next to the basket on top. You click on it, and you need to put content in it to continue your search. Now that's a nuisance because that could be 10% of the hits. So if you look at your stats, you'll find that virtually 30% of turnover includes a search on other sites. Now these are my personal stats, of course. There's another additional problem because of the content problem. Of course, there are spelling mistakes, and that's terrible. You know, you shouldn't have any kind of spelling mistakes. They talk about delivery to professionals, but nothing about delivery to private individuals. And I was wondering if they really delivered to private individuals at all, because there was a lot of information on delivery to, business to business sort of thing. So, did you have this site tested? Well, I asked my mother to try it, and I let her go through it. And then she turned around and looked at me, and I knew that she was blocking somewhere. And I tried to understand what was the showstopper. It's very useful because take anyone, no expert, and you know exactly what's not clear. And that's where you should be ready to correct. And then we focused once again on the home page, where again you have very big visuals. Very nice product visuals, but on top you just see 4 products, just 4 products on the home page, which is not enough. They propose a lot of products. There's a lot of content, but there isn't much here. There's a little bit of animation over there. These are supposed to be all the new products, because that's what it says. But where are the brands? What's so new about them? Now, below you've got certain creative work, which takes you straight to the blog. That's very good. Yeah, but the blog doesn't sell. The blog is just to create traffic that it'll then send to your site and hope that it'll convert. Here there's no link with the product. So on top you see that traffic is being sent to the blog, but it stays on the blog, and that's a pity. It isn't converted. So you make this package, products, etc., that would help you to get people to come to your site. And phone number. You must have a phone number. You should talk about who's behind it, give the list and so on. Well, if you look at the amount of space that is occupied by links to the blog, look at it. It's all this. This is the blog. And it's right here too. It's redundant. This is too much on the home page because their job is to sell online. And you have to be careful how you actually display your content. You can't have it twice on the same home page. And besides, you must share out the space better. The layout should be improved. You can have a better use of space. It's a bit like Gaillat, you should be very clear about your aim, and that is to sell. Everything you do around photos, content, etc. must serve the same purpose, to sell the product and not distract from it. And here, the sales If I exclude the menu, it just covers 10 to 15% of the clickable area on the home page. So they haven't optimized as they should. Now the product category or the product sheet. We picked Gaillat or this site. Let's explain to you why. Visually, it's a very nice looking site, very eye-catching, and it's well done. And you almost feel like ordering something here. It's visually very interesting, but that's not all. You need more than that. As I said, there's the text on the side, which is a bit too much. Now, you must have all the pictograms which show you the right color. You've got green, blue, and brown. And when you click on the color, that gives you the right color. Unfortunately, you can't see here. The rest is nice too, but the problem is you've got products which are neither of the same color nor of the shape, you see. So, okay, you've got different categories. You've got this exactly the same 4 products that start each time. Now, I don't know if it's the ones that they want to sell, and that's why they keep showing the same ones. And then the zoom. Please don't put a zoom in, because if you get the same photo in a zoom, there's no point having it. Maybe you don't want as much detail as you get on Von Privé, just to see what the weave is, if it's an item of clothing, but at least show us something more than the general photo here, if that's what the zoom is all about. At the same time, you should know who you're talking to. So here we did a test to see if this site was reassuring. If the product is in stock, then delivery is, we don't know when it's going to be delivered, you know. It hasn't been marked down. That's a must. Now, if you're a professional, delivery is very quick. Or it's within 48 hours, but how about all the others? If you're a private individual, what happens? There's no information, so you ask more questions. So when you're writing out your content, make sure that there's an answer to all your questions, because the more questions a person asks, then the less likely he is to buy, right? Okay, and there's something we saw on all sites. This button here, right to go on, it's always on this side. Now I've tested it just by mistake. And this was just the express checkout, so it's a pity you didn't put it right next to the basket button. Yeah, now that's a technical mistake. Now I want to know if there's somebody in this room who can give me a reason to put it up there. Is it possible to put it up there next to the basket?
Sur la fiche produit qui est pas si mal.
Now the last defect is that you've got this product is unavailable. It says not available, so you should be able to have it in stock and warn the others. Now, how about the shoes, Eclipse shoes?
Dites 2 petites choses. Les produits à 0 €, ça c'est toi qui l'avais remarqué.
Now, we have products at €0, so be very careful to sort out all your products according to price. You know, do it in ascending prices, if you like, even if they are not in stock. And there's something else on Gaillat. There's very little space left for natural references. The descriptions aren't filled in, and there's very little content on the product page. There's nothing specific to the category, and that's a real pity, because you don't necessarily have the means, you know, of attracting this traffic, and which would be free. Well, the ambience also. There's a lot about ambience, and it's you don't find it on the product page, because normally that's what's meant to convince the browser if it's good and if it's nice in your living space. Here you have a photo. in the right ambience. So you might as well use it over here. Content costs a lot, and so you use it correctly. You must have a link going both ways. And so you should have products to put into content and contents that can go with products. You see, the two should merge well together. So that was about Gaillat. And as advisors, if you've got a product at €0, if you sell it, you're going to lose money. You're going to waste money. And besides, all your competitors are going to kill you, right? Now, are you going to talk to us about Eclipse? This is a shoe shop. Tell me something about this. Well, I found it very attractive because there was a zoom on shoes, Very nice photos. And what you were saying, I think the name is good because you've got the main name, which is chaussures, which is shoes, and then the brand name, Eclipse. It's natural and it's easier. So you've got everything of interest. So when you're creating your own brand, maybe you should do it. Do this or have it hosted somewhere on the blog. Plus, there's also the product which is immediately there in the photo. You don't know what they're selling and how. It's easy to understand. And apart from that, because I always check, this site is extremely proactive. It's very responsive. It's almost a must now. But be very careful. If you make a site like that, it shouldn't be something that resizes if you play around with your Chrome browser. It should be usable also as of a mobile.
Vous avez passé une commande et que tout fonctionne. Ça veut...
Usable, that means you've placed an order and everything works. That's what it means. So placing orders, we'll talk about it a bit later. Well, on Eclipse, what I found really a shame really is the head of the size of the header. There's a lot of empty rooms, and I think that's lost space. So then the contents go down, so that it takes more time to have access to the product, and it looks a bit dull and a bit sad. The header is very high, and there are many empty spaces. The white and the grey background. Well, the advantage is that you don't take too many risks in terms of design when you take white and grey, because it's always good taste. But the risk is that it becomes a bit dull. You should have used more interesting fonts and something that looks more dynamic, or make up with contrasting colors that we use for action buttons, for some hypertext links and so on. Well, to me, it's a bit dull and austere, and it affects the brand which wants to convey an image of urban footwear and dynamic footwear. And finally, there's something that's a bit of a shame, is the links to categories are repeated in the browsing menu and in the footer. And I think it's not necessary to have this in the footer, and you could use the footers area for other things. And the search engine, I'm getting a bit old, so I can't see as well as I used to do before. So there are things that are not so visible, like under the cart. The search field appears there, and it's not very ergonomic. I could not see how I could search for a product. I had to look very closely to see how I could have access to the search field. And I think that's very important if you want to be able to browse the catalog. And the things next to the cart buttons, you'd rather avoid them because you're not always sure that they're going to appear in the right place. Any remarks on the homepage? Well, for the homepage, what I liked are the large visuals that present the flagship products. There's been a great work done on the atmosphere with the pictures. If you can't afford to pay for many pictures, try to have a pack with about 10 pictures that will clearly illustrate your offer, your product offer, that can set the tone and differentiate And there are the reassurance elements, the possibility to find out how it can be delivered, how we can contact the website. So they did what was needed for all the essential aspects, but they're not necessarily well positioned. So here you can see, as I said, there's a lot of lost space, and one key element also is the difference with Gaillat. It was the newsletter. They encourage you to subscribe to the newsletter, and there's a big blog that says subscribe to the newsletter, but it does not tell you what's the added value. Will it be promotions? Like if you subscribe to the ASOS newsletter, you get a €10 voucher. They explain to you why, whereas here you don't know why you should subscribe to the newsletter. And especially with fashion, and in fashion in most cases you get a discount voucher. So you should provide more information on the newsletter about what you get. And then there's a little information about the views of bloggers. They work a lot with bloggers at Eclipse. They have Instagram, and they have with beautiful pictures. But we don't see the work they do on the social networks. We can't see it on the homepage, and I think that would be an added value to put it here. That would give some more energy, because the design is a bit dull. So when you have quality, high quality content on social networks, especially in fashion, you really want to show those contents on your website to show there is a community around your brand. Another key point, the slider. Well, I don't really like that, but also you have to be careful with the links that you put in the slider. At Eclipse, twice the same link appears twice. You see first the espadrille and the strap shoes, and I would have liked to have I wanted to see the espadrille, and if I'm not happy with my research, I'm like, okay, they have no product that meets my needs, so I'll move to another site. Sometimes you're in a rush. You put the wrong link. You have to test every single thing each time you make a connection on your site, whether it is in marketing or when you are designing your website for the first time. So you have to be very cautious on this aspect. Another aspect about the links that take you from the homepage to another thing. It's like one website I'm thinking of. You click on a link that directly sends you from the homepage to the blog, so it sends you to another URL. So that means you can lose money like this, because your visitor is navigating somewhere else. So, and also it's a shame that there are some gaps in the content, in the text. You could see it with the contact area, with the little icon with the phone. So you could move the text, because the text is underneath the icon and it should be next to the icon. So you can't leave this like that, because it doesn't look very professional in terms of site image. And we can see there are more categories for a brand website, whereas Bonlevy, which is a marketplace site, so that doesn't make sense. And just a few information about the product characteristics, product description. I really like the product description, and almost ordered a pair of espadrilles, but eventually I didn't do it, and I will explain why. So the top of the description is well structured, and you have all the key information. You can select the size. It's quite ergonomic. There are many visuals, and you can see the shoe from different aspects, different sides. So the product picture sort of replaces everything, because you cannot touch the product. So it's important that you really emphasize your visuals and try to see all the aspects of the product. I like the style advice, so that just to give you some ideas what to wear with those wonderful espadrilles, and to wear there in an urban context. So I found that quite attractive. This product description is well designed, but there are some elements I'm not so happy with. The action button color is not very nice, and purple is not a very engaging color. I would have used a more contrasting color that's more visible and more efficient. So we could have A/B testing here. You could replace purple with green or pink and see if it works better or not. Another point which is not so good to me is all the additional products at the bottom. And it's a bit dull, and the product features take a lot of room. And I think I would have reorganized everything here. And here again, we have the PayPal icon at the bottom right. So I'd be interested to know the number of clicks on this button. One element that I found a bit annoying, which you find on KZ, well, these products are not available. And it happened to me with a pair of sneakers that was the first in its category. I clicked on it, no availability in no size. So you have to correctly manage your product descriptions for an available product. So make sure they don't appear first in the list. If they're back in stock, you can, if they'll soon be back in stock, you can leave a specific message that you want to be notified when the product comes back in stock. But if it's discontinued, if the product cannot be back in stock, you just remove it. Look at pêcheur.com website. It's for unavailable products. They don't deactivate them immediately. If you look at products that are not out of stock, okay, that's fine. But presenting them at the top of your list, at the top of the research, you have to be able to prioritize them. I mean, if they're not in stock, or if they will not be in stock soon, just put them at the bottom of the list. If you send a visitor to an unavailable product description, to a product, the person will be tempted to leave. So you have to offer the person other alternative products. So let's talk about social networks again. This person, she worked with bloggers. They have a lot of content on the Instagram account and Facebook account. So this is where you need to add product content with style, advice, and pictures of people. Took pictures of themselves with the shoes on, and they posted the pictures on Instagram, because this will encourage the person to buy. This will be a strong driver for purchase. That's a new idea for Chaussures Eclipse, Eclipse shoes. On the whole, the biggest part of the work, I think, is first on the color selection. The design has to be reviewed, has to be given a new impetus to make it look more dynamic, and also offer better integration with social networks to really show that the brand is popular and well known. So we've talked a lot about homepage, the category pages and product pages, but that's not everything. There's another key element that's important, is the cart page and the order tunnel. It's hard to talk about it. We would need a full day to talk about it, because there is so much to say about this topic. So we've tried to find a good example and leave some time to Q&A. So I strongly invite you to look at the cart page of Zalando that contains a lot of ideas for good practices. But there should be something like we could share the cart, or I can't see it, but a lot of things are good on this page. I would take an hour, I think, to detail the entire page. So I'll let you have a look at it, and we'll take some questions. We have about 10 minutes for questions and answers, and we'll give you a brief reminder of the good practices. That's for free. So who has a question? And the good practices appear on the slide. So we have 10 minutes. Don't be shy. Ask some questions. Good afternoon. I am a developer. I work a lot with PrestaShop, and I can see things that are typical of PrestaShop. So sometimes in product page, you have a bit of everything. You have the PayPal buttons, the social networks buttons, but it's also a matter of time. The things you have to respect and the footer. So visitors are able to recognize this content. Is it a sign of quality? Are they happy to use this? So, do you? So there's a button that's quite visible that says "Add to Cart." No, we can explain further. For the share button on the social networks, I haven't noticed a high utilization rate. There's a problem with the microphone. If you have to make a choice, I'd rather work on the Add to Cart button instead of putting all the share buttons for social networks. I don't think it's relevant. It's not relevant if you have no action on social networks, if you don't specially work with social networks. You have a person for Pinterest. If you have a person for Pinterest, one for Facebook and one for Instagram, then in that case we can start talking about sharing, share on Facebook and so on buttons. But the less disturbing information you have around the product, the better it is. You know, earlier on we talked about the content and we talked about added value content, and this is fine. But all the rest, try to get rid of it. Ergonomics is about making things more simple. Once you have nothing left to remove, then you're on the right track. So the microphone is very playful. So it's well, good afternoon. It's very good. I listened to your presentation with great attention. Order a lot on the internet, and most of the time when I choose not to complete the action is because of a code problem. A card on the account, because you have to enter your email address, you need to have your account and so on. You need to find the password, and in most cases I give up because of all this information I have to provide. There's the guest checkout that's available with PrestaShop. You can try with the guest shop checkout or without it. The more hampers you put in the tunnel, the more likely you are to lose. You just have an email address and a postal address to enter. I forgot to say that. To explain why I didn't order on Eclipse. It's because I had to leave the website and I was redirected to a postal service, to Colissimo for the shipment, and eventually I gave up. We haven't talked about this yet, but on the whole, it's something that we've seen on all the sites that I've applied. So for about 10 sites, we looked at them we looked at all the details to review them. And I don't think even half of them have been used by their own developers or owners. So please give a €100 voucher or €50 voucher. I know it will cost you money. Give this voucher to your parents or your cousins. You know, somebody who's not a web professional, who's not too close to you, and ask him or what he thinks about it or what they think about it, and you'll learn a lot. I can lend you my mother. She's very good at testing things. Another question? I think we have more time for some more questions. Good afternoon. I would have liked to find out more about the frequency of the newsletter. How often should we send a newsletter? It depends on the area. It depends on the basis. It's about cultural differences. In the States, there is a higher pressure with newsletters, so you have to customize it as much as you can. And as you customize it, you will be able to define the frequency. It's not a weekly basis or every 2 weeks. It's up to you to test it, to find out if it's not going to use the base too much and see how the interaction starts developing. I would say don't send any newsletter, but send emails, send very specific and targeted emails, and there's no limit. You can send 50 emails a day if the person visits your website 50 times a day. It depends on the number of visits per day. The newsletter, doesn't have much potential, unlike the emails, as long as you customize the content. And it's very easy. You can have automated solutions, like you see your product and you have the identification cookies, and then they send you an email. There's a product recommendation. There are many solutions to send emails, content to download, and so on. You can try to also to limit the groups of clients to 10 to 15% of your base. Then I would do both. You have to customize, but also you have to show what you do elsewhere. Have to show the other things that you do. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for this presentation. I have a smallish question for you as a website auditor. To what extent do you use tracking solutions like Google Analytics, Omniture in your job? The merchants use this a lot. What about you? Who uses Google Analytics here? Who doesn't use it? That's a better question. I use the tools that are used by the merchants. So I try to provide information through those tools. There's also the PrestaShop dashboard that can provide information. Then it's up to the settings. Personally, I like Google Analytics because I know how to use it. So on all the sites we've audited, we didn't have access to Google Analytics, although we did contact the merchants to have some information on their strategies. So we didn't use Google Analytics here. But then it's very easy to say, my website is not suitable for whatever reasons. So if you don't check the stats, it's not true. The best way to improve your website today is to carry out B testing. So to have the statistics, you can test in an empirical way, but that will not change anything. You're not necessarily going in the right direction. A/B testing, statistics measurement, while we perform audits, they're not free of charge. If we say an object works well because we look at the stats and some sites are ugly and perform really well. I can think of one site which looks like a Minitel. It's the product offer that makes the difference. So really, you really want to focus on this part rather than the economic part. So the statistics are indispensable. You must have full command of Google Analytics. It's something you must be completely proficient with, otherwise you won't get the right results. And you really want to have the right settings for your sales. It's important to spend time on the settings. So we wrote a lot of articles on the Skillbox sites. And there are a lot of there's a lot of information on tunnel configuration. There's one e-commerce tracking part. It's all free, and it's better to improve your tracking performance because sometimes the statistics are distorted. So it's good that you have full command of Google Analytics. If there's a tracking problem, you must be worried about it right from day one and not after 5 years. It's essential to assess your performance level. And on the midterm, it can be quite dangerous. So you have to be able to completely master the full financial chain. So I think we're good for timing. So let's keep talking. We're not behind schedule. Thank you, Mathilde. Thank you, Benoit. I have a smallish question about B-testing. I know it all depends on the merchant's objectives. So for A/B test and MVT, what are the top 3 or top 5 of the things you tested in priority on an e-commerce site? That's a good question. I can't answer right now. Usually we perform the test in two different ways. First is the empirical way. Well, that's how most merchants work. For us, we have an analytical approach. In analytics, we look at the less effective pages, the pages that don't perform so well, and we try to find potential. So it's a good approach to find where the problem is before taking action. So we perform tests, we identify the page or the site segment that is problematic, and we perform tests and versus the good practices in the area. If we are on the checkout, we look at the checkout and perform a sound checkout to identify the difference. It's rather complex, but everything like conversion tunnels are things that you can easily test, the size of the action buttons, the colors, and so on. This is really important. If your products are good and if the site is not so well designed, what will make the conversion rate decrease is the error messages. Sometimes you get on the website, you have a good impression, and gradually this good impression disappears. So first I identify the problem, and then depending on the problem, I perform some tests. Not so long ago, we launched a responsive version of our site, and the rebounds rate was higher on the category pages. And so we had displaced a text. It was at the top before, and we put it at the bottom of the page, and that's what the problem was. So we had to put it back on top, so I can have a higher rebounds rate, or the action rate is not sufficient compared to my expectations. It all depends on the data, which may be not up to your expectations. Are we done? Can we continue? Any questions? I just wanted to ask you a question for social logging in e-commerce, which is, can you speak close to the mic? It's about social logging, which is not widely used if you compare with community type websites. Why is it not so underused? There are many reasons for this. Facebook is not your friend, and sometimes it works and sometimes it does not work anymore. So some merchants are reluctant to use it. And sometimes it's badly configured, so you don't retrieve the right information. I don't think there's any problem with the user. I don't have a problem with this as a user. I don't register with startup websites that do not offer any Facebook logging because I don't want to set up an account. But that's just my personal point of view. The client's point of view may be different. And some websites, they used a plugin that doesn't necessarily work fully with the site. So I try, if it was possible, I would not impose any account setup. So we just have to click on a link to gain loyalty points. But I would have I don't think it should be necessary to set up an account. As long as you have the email address of the client, that's enough, and that's a contact point to get in touch with the client. So I would remove the login part. In the e-commerce, we have the postal address and the delivery address and the email address. So the account is set up in any case. It's not necessarily a question, it's just to pick up with what you've said. In the States, some sites start asking for your credit card number before doing any action. Then they ask for your credit card number, and then you define the account options. It's still illegal in France. And on my online shop, before they enter the means of payment, the fewer clicks you have before you reach the payment page, the more you sell. And also for the email reminders for payment failure is not something that's very widespread in France. So in that way, with those reminders, you can recover 50% of the orders that were not paid. So you can almost recover everything, because sometimes 3D Secure doesn't work so well, and most payment failures are due to problems at the bank rather than a card problem. So if it failed, would the client have to place the order again right from the beginning to the end, or just click on one link and he can pay? So there's a gentleman raising his hand at the other end of the room. Are we going to stop here? Well, good afternoon. Your social significance on Instagram. How do you manage all the social networks like Twitters? How do you manage all that without having a community manager? What is the real impact of social networking on the sales? And in that case, how do you manage it without a community manager? Because it's time consuming. It depends on the products that you sell. If you sell washing machines, it's a bit complicated. I have the example of someone who's here. Edict is here. They use social networks a lot. Do you have a community manager? Yes, they have a community manager. So a community, it's not necessarily a person, but it's a person who's sufficiently passionate about the product and who's really willing to talk about the product on the social networks. What's the point in having content on social networks? If you don't have the answer to this question, well, there's no point. You should know why you make content. Is it to add value to the brand? Is it to show your work as an entrepreneur? There are many reasons for this. You have to define those reasons before performing the work. Is it to add value to your products? If you're on social networks only because everybody does it, that will be the additional costs, so don't do it. And because you will never get a return on investment, it will never work if you don't really want to show what's going on behind the scenes. Basically, if you have nothing specific to show. If it's industrialized product, and if you never see the product in your place, there's no point in being on social networks, and it will not be efficient. But if you have a story to tell, because that's what it's all about, you want to tell a story, and if you want to tell a story, check out the social networks, and it's also time-consuming. Being an e-merchant is very time-consuming. I'm very aware of that. So you have to set your priorities, identify where your priorities are, because everything is very time-consuming. I think I'm going to stop here, Mathilde. Thank you very much for attending this conference.
Et on vous souhaite un très beau taux de conversion. Hein.
Merci à tous.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mathilde Rossi and Benoit Gaillat. For my part, I've learned a lot and I've seen a lot, so I need to protect my eyes. So we've seen a lot of things since this morning. I have a small question to ask you. Can you hear the same thing as I do? I hear the PrestaShop community taking the floor, and if you can't hear so well, and if you want to say something, I recommend you go to the bar camp area just behind the room. And now I'm going to talk to the developers who are in this room. Are you daring? Are you daring? Are you daring to challenge the hacks? Then, if that's the case, we'll meet at the dev battles. We'll meet for the dev battles at 3 o'clock. But for those who want to stay with us, you're right to do so. We are going to face failure. We're going to face failure during the FailConf in a few minutes. We will talk about failures. And I said I wanted to protect my eyes. And should we be protected against failure? Should we face it? Apparently, it is not an obstacle. So I've been speaking a lot, and the next speakers have a lot to say. They have a lot more to say. So in a few minutes, you will have the opportunity to listen to them. Thank you very much.